it's well known, if you read the book, you get more on this, but you, in the leadership, you stripped some things away as you begin to intentionally design a culture. I love that it took 10 years. I think that is, that's not a romantic number when people hear that. It wasn't 10 days or 10 weeks. It was 10 years to get that deck, and I think that's realistic.
Yeah, my entrepreneurial CEOs are like, but I want it now.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, good luck, Junior. So,
and it's hard work.
It is. It is. Well, and one of the things you did is you did examine every rule, every process, the bureaucracy, so the flow or positions and all that good stuff. What happened? Take us through some scenarios, some stories that pop in mind when you begin to deconstruct and strip things away.
Okay, so we had written the chapter on high performance. I had really high performing people on the team. We're about to go, we went public. The auditors come, the SOX guys come, there's consultants everywhere and auditors everywhere. And they say, we don't like your time off policy, which what it was at the time was you accrued a day a month and it was an honor system. So when you left the company, I'd say, what do we owe you? And you'd tell me and I'd pay you. So the auditors didn't like that because, technically it's all falling to the bottom line and I'm paying everybody 13 months a year and they don't like that. The SOX guys don't like it because it's not standard issue. You get Christmas off and Thanksgiving off. And right. So they wanted to say, here's a policy we like, do this. And this true story, I'm sitting in my office and Reed comes in and I'm cranky about it because I don't like either solution. He says, do you have to have paid time off? And the HR VP on my left shoulder, I really, really used to be an HR person. I want you to know this, says, of course you have to have paid time off, Reed. Everybody's got paid time off. And the other person who lives inside of the innovative company called Netflix says, you mean legally? Mm-hmm. I don't know. So I go and do a bunch of research. And as I'm doing the research, I'm thinking about time off, right? And I'm thinking, have I ever said goodbye to, a salaried employee because they've been tardy or absent? No, right? In fact, I've said goodbye to people who work all the time and don't get anything done. Mm-hmm. And the people who work all the time, they're weird. You really don't want somebody who spends their whole life at work because they don't have their life and then everything gets so drama about it. So I stopped and thought, and why would I have to hire people on my team to police the time that you spend on your team? Mm-hmm. Right? And that the real managing of time happens locally and the real measurement of time is what gets done.
That's right? Good.
So if you say, wow, this team is consistently late in delivering, then you might reverse engineer that. Another term I learned from the geeks I hung around with. If I reverse engineer why this team is consistently not meeting its objectives, is it A, they're not very good at projecting, or they're not honest when they say, how long is it going to take for you to deliver? B, do they have the wrong team? C, are they not putting in the time it takes to do it? Right? But all of those answers are legitimate and they have nothing to do with whether or not you take Christmas off. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
Plus, I had this huge diverse staff, right? And I'm going to say, oh yeah, forget about Hanukkah unless it's close to Christmas, right? Or, or that your culture celebrates something that happens the second week in January. Mm-hmm. So that's when I just started thinking logically about it. I thought, well, maybe I don't need a time off policy. And here's what really happened. I stood up in front of the employees and I said, we're thinking that you're grown up enough to keep track of time within your own teams. And what we're going to keep track of is, do you get done what you say you get done? Does it serve the customer? Does it make the company better? Now, if what all the lawyers and everybody else tells us will happen happens, which is it's going to be chaos, you guys aren't going to do any work, nothing's ever going to happen, there's going to be people gone all the time, we'll have lawsuits because people are treated differently, then we'll go back to the way everybody else does it. We'll do best practices. In the meantime, I'm going to trust you to do the right thing. And giving people that ownership and that trust, oh man, that is so much more effective than a policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, give us an example. Give us an example of somebody you remember, or maybe you heard a report from a leader who said, Patty, this is how they reacted to that. When you stood up, or however that was communicated corporately, what was the initial response? And then maybe second part of that question is, what was the long-term response?
Well, the initial response was a little bit of confusion. Like, does that mean we don't get time off? Right? Like, does that mean you really just, is this a fake way of just saying work all the time? Mm-hmm. So I had to tell the story of like people who work all the time are weird and we really don't want you to be weird. Right. And the second part was like, if you're going to give this to me as a team manager, what's the right thing to do in my team? So an example was this person came down and she said, I've been elected to come tell you about what we're doing in our team because we think that when you find out, we're going to be in trouble. I'm like, oh, really? What is it? I'm thinking this could be really juicy. And she said, we have a vacation schedule. We post it inside the cubicle so you won't see it when you walk by. And it's color coded. And I said, well, why do you do that? And she said, we're on call. Like, well, that makes complete sense to me. Right? I didn't say don't do the right thing, so that you can get your work done. I said, do the thing that matters to you to get your work done. Right? So, and later on, what people did, so I had this reporter come in and he spent the day with me finding out about what he thought was going to be this Google-like perk, right? At the end of the day, he comes in, he goes, well, here's the deal. This is not a good story at all. You know what people do? Like, yeah, what do they do? I don't know. So I don't keep track of it. He said, they take the same time off they always did. If they have kids, they go to their plays and they go to their events and they take some time off in the summer and some time and all the paid holidays, right? All the holidays their kids get off. And if they're young and they're single, they save up their time and they go hiking in Nepal. And I'm like, oh yeah, me, I love 3-day weekends, right? And I said, so what else? What did they say about it? And he said, they said, nothing's really different. It's just wonderful that I own it.
Yes.
Right? That somebody else isn't telling me what to do. I'm getting my work done around what I need in my life. And so he goes, there's no story here. So I said to him, hey, you've been hanging around with me all day and you could go back to the newspaper and they might think you've been at the beach. So how are they going to know that you did what you were supposed to do? He's like, excuse me? And I said, because you're going to write this story and it's going to have the right amount of words and it's going to be well edited and it's going to pack a punch and it's going to be a good story like you always turn in. That's how they'll know it's done. Mm-hmm. I said, do you ever go to the newspaper office? And he turns red and he says, yeah, I do occasionally. And I said, to do what? And he goes, to submit my vacation request for.
Oh, wow. That is rich.
So you think about that, particularly journalists now, when I turn it back on them, it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm completely independent.
Yeah, that's right. And it makes good sense.